This afternoon I wanted to do a very quick video, just something to demonstrate how I like to polish the insides of fine detailed hand-cut filigree like this. I've made several videos on pressing things like this and even cutting them, drilling the holes, that sort of thing. And inevitably people ask me, well, how do you polish the insides of those little holes? So this will be a relatively short video, I hope, and it'll answer that question for you, hopefully. So traditionally, with piercings like this, especially with higher value metals, the way you would finish the inside surfaces would be by a process called thrumming, which is you take fine thread or string and coat it with compound, just kind of run it over the compound, and you thread the string into each opening, attach the string to a fixed point, and then move the piece along the string to rub the compound on the edges. Now, I still do that on occasion, but you know, with hundreds of tiny openings, that is really time and cost prohibitive. So I will show you the way I do this typically instead. Sorry if the audio isn't great. I'm running my laser in the background, and as many of you know, I'm not really into the videos as much as I do enjoy sharing techniques and things like that. So I'll do my best. So one of the ways that you can do this is to take old broken drill bits, and if you drill these tiny holes, you'll have plenty of these broken drill bits. And if you take a drill bit like this that's been broken off and simply file it, create like a little flat spot, and then you run it at high speed in here, and that will burnish these edges. And I've done that as well. The other thing to remember is if you're using a 6/0 or a 5/0 blade to do this, you know, frankly, if you're really careful with your sawing, these edges are almost ready to go, except for very close inspection. So you really don't need to sand them as much as you need to burnish them, or at least use a little bit of an abrasive. And frankly, many of the ribs on a piece like this are, the openings are about 1 millimeter, so the ribs are about 100 microns, and which means there's not much metal there to abrade away. So going in with files in these tiny holes isn't the preferred way for me to do it. I use files on larger openings, like I did on the bail here. Those are quite large, but these tinier ones are a little more problematic. Okay, so the thing I discovered that's really handy are these flame tipped burrs. These happen to be bush burrs. They're about 5 millimeters long and a maximum of 1 millimeter at their base, but they taper to a fine point, so you can get down into openings that are about 1/4 of a millimeter or so in diameter. I bought about 20 of these a couple of years ago, and I don't know where I got them, but hopefully you can find them, and hopefully I'll be able to find them again. I'm sure they're available. And I actually like them after they have been used a little while, because they're a little bit aggressive right out of the box. So all you do with these, as you would predict, is load them into your Fordham or Dremel, and I use my C-biggers and run them at very high speed, and I try to put my thumb here, and then I'll do all these openings before I move on. Now, in many cases, you could leave it right like that. Now, I'm not going to make a whole video with me doing all of these because that would be kind of insane. But what I'll do is I'll complete this piece and then I'll move on to the next stage. But before I do that, what I would do normally is use this burr. You can actually almost tell the difference from here already in the surfaces because they're shinier. If you want to really take it up a notch, then after you use one of these flame tip burrs, I discovered that this might be a trick. I don't know. I'm sure other people have done this. But you know how you can chuck things into your Fordham or your Dremel? Well, these little holders, these little chucks, these mandrels, they were designed to hold these silicone plugs, and these are good for polishing. But they're still kind of crude. And what I like to do is take a toothpick, and if you just have round toothpicks and cut a bunch in half, you take half a toothpick, and it fits perfectly in there. So you chuck that in, and then run this over your favorite compound. And if you're anything like me, you have a selection of like 10 or 12 different compounds, and I keep finding myself coming back to Zam. I'm sure there are better ones, but I really like it. And by doing this, the friction will allow the wood fibers to pick up some of the compound. And then you can run it in under moderate speed. Oh my. Yeah, and you can tell that shines these up really, really well. And of course you're going to go through, I'll probably go through a half a dozen toothpicks doing this, but that's pretty darn cheap way to do it. So anyway, that really is all it amounts to for finishing the interior of these things off. Now, in the next steps, I'll do very quickly for you. I do sonicate it before I finish, and I will then put it in the magnetic pin polisher to shine things up. But otherwise, that's all that there is to it. So hopefully this is kind of a short video. Okay, almost finished. So what I've done is polished all the insides, and of course it looks a little dull because I've got polishing compound all over it, but I have in fact used some 3M bristle discs to already polish this, so it's not going in anywhere rough, but it needs to be spiffed up. So first thing I do is put it through the sonicator. And you could, if you use heat in your sonicator, you could just toss it in there for 15-20 minutes. I don't typically heat it. So what I'll do, final step for me is going to be to put it in a tumbler. And again, don't count on your tumbler to do the finishing for you. It really is just the last step. And I use a burnishing compound, Shine Bright. You can use Dawn dish soap or a variety of other things. And toss the piece in, put the barrel on the magnets. By the way, don't store this on the magnets. These are stainless pins, but they are a magnetic stainless. And if you store them right on top of the magnets, they will become magnetized themselves, and they become much less effective. It's harder for the magnets to toss them around. So what I'll do is simply set that for about 15 to 30 minutes and let it run. Of course, while that's running, you hear all this noise in the background. That's my laser, and I happen to be cutting a die that is for an earring that I put together. And so hopefully another hour or so, and that die will be ready to complete.